60% of the American public is about to lose everything they have. People living paycheck to paycheck are about to go broke. The GDP numbers came in yesterday, and of course the economy receded, which I predicted 2 months ago, and people laughed. Mark my words, the second quarter is going to be far worse. Tariffs on Chinese products at 145% are about to kick in, which means everything you buy from China on Amazon or elsewhere is about to go through the roof. Grocery store shelves are starting to empty at Walmarts across the country, and of course grocery prices continue to soar. People who've been financing groceries on credit are starting to default on those payments. We are about to see an economic catastrophe. If you're in this 60% that has little or no money, please stop spending money. Protect your family. Trump does not care about you. Even if you voted for him, he's a billionaire. He won't suffer, but you and your family will. Please protect yourself. 60% of the American public.
Are 22 states headed into a recession? You know I took notes. Let's talk about it. My home state of Louisiana, the economy is expanding, allegedly. But 22 other states are already in or right on the edge of a recession, and that's according to new data from Moody's Analytics, and it paints a really uneven picture across the country. Chief economist Mark Zandi analyzed state-level jobs data, personal income, housing starts, and industrial output to estimate the strength of each state's economy as of September 1st, 2025. His index mimics how the National Bureau of Economic Research decides if the nation's in a recession. The results? 16 states, including Louisiana, Texas, Florida, and Pennsylvania, are all still expanding. 13, like California and New York, are treading water. But 2 states, from Illinois to Minnesota, are either in recession or right at the brink. Zandi says the biggest reasons are slowing immigration, rising tariffs, and federal job cuts. States that rely heavily on agriculture and manufacturing are feeling the pressure first. The immigration crackdown is suppressing growth, and states most exposed to federal job losses, like Virginia and Maryland, are struggling too. Washington, D.C., has the highest unemployment rate in the country right now at 6%. Zandi also warned that if big economies like New York or California turn downward, quote, the nation's going into recession. He added, my takeaway is not that the economy is in recession, but that it's pretty darn close. So, while Louisiana is holding strong, so they say, the rest of the country's stability might depend on what happens next in those larger states. So what do you guys think? Are we in it or are we heading towards it? Let me know in the comments. Bye.
I got laid off from my corporate job yesterday. And I think that this is the reality for a lot of Americans right now, and it needs to be shared because America is not doing well right now. We have a 94% prediction rate that the recession is going to come, but yet our frickin' administration hasn't even made the move to actually say that a recession is coming. And let's actually call it what it is, a depression. People can't afford groceries, they can't afford rent, they can't afford buying houses, they can't afford having babies, they can't afford having the kids in general if they already have them. We are not in a good spot, y'all. I know that I'm just a number in a company, but I thought I was okay. You're going to think that you're okay because you've worked there for so long or you have the right experience. Like, you guys, I have an undergraduate in marketing, a master's in business, 6 years of paid social media experience, both on a strategist and manager level. I have done people management for at least 3 years. I'm a senior level in my career. And yet, when I was hired to do a senior level role, I was forced into entry level positions. I was doing entry-level work as a senior-level strategist, all while at the same time being asked to reduce my workload with AI, and our team was having layoffs every 3 months. I should have seen it coming. I really should have. But the thing is that it was not something that I saw coming, because the day before that they laid me off, I was literally talking coverage plans with another employee who was going on leave for months. How am I supposed to sit there and not think that I'm safe in that moment? I just think it's absolutely ridiculous that we live in a world like this where my manager wasn't even the one that fired me, by the way, or laid me off. It was frickin' HR, and they read off a script, but my whole team got laid off. And this is the reality for a lot of Americans right now. My partner is a first responder, so I'm very lucky for the fact that I can be leaning on him for support right now, because luckily his job is secure, thanks to the fact that number one, his job is essential, and number two, he has a union behind him. What I will never understand is why corporate agencies have not unionized. We're not allowed, right? We're not allowed. That's part of it. We'll get fired because at least in this corporate world, they're always going to side on the side of business because that's what's making the government money. This world right now is not supporting people. It is supporting business. You are just a number, unfortunately. So please prepare yourself for shit like this. I wish I would have. I wish I'd been applying to other jobs months ago. I just was so dumb to not realize the signs. I want to talk about it. I think people need to talk about it. I think we need to make this more public. We all saw the jobs report. It was awful. Getting laid off on the day that the jobs report goes out, and it's 22,000 instead of 75,000 new jobs. You know how discouraging that is? If you know of anything in the marketing space, let me know. Use my comments as a way in which to maybe trauma dump. I don't care, vent. I'm here for you guys. I can't believe this. And I'm really sorry if you're going through this too. Here for you.
Moody's has downgraded the United States to AA1, specifically citing government debt and interest rate payments, also saying that it expects that the federal debt burden will rise to 134% of GDP by 2035. Interesting, too, that this comes on a day where the House Republicans are trying to push through a big tax cut bill.
Well, a tax cut bill, Romaine, that could add trillions of dollars to the deficit over the next decade. And as conservatives argue that this bill does not do enough to cut spending to offset some of those effects. And there is a call out from Moody's here about the current policy proposals working their way through Washington. They say in the statement, we do not believe that material multi-year reductions in mandatory spending and deficits will result from the current fiscal proposals under consideration. So despite Republican efforts to find savings in areas like Medicaid, with the extension of the 2017 tax cuts, all of the other tax policy that they're trying to pursue, that all could be deficit additive to the tune of $4+ trillion. And that is really what Moody's is taking consideration here. This could actually add fuel, Romaine, to the argument some of these fiscal hawks in Congress are making that this bill should not pass as is because of the impact on the debt and deficit, keeping in mind that Moody's was the last one standing when it comes to having the highest rating on the U.S.
We'll talk about that last point you made. So we had a House committee vote today where this reconciliation bill failed. 5 Republicans broke ranks, joined with the Democrats, and those 5 Republicans specifically were calling out these long-term debt issues as one of the reasons why they would not vote for it. I assume they have to be pretty happy right now because they've got a big piece of ammunition heading into this next vote, which I think might be on Sunday. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Budget Committee is going to try again at 10 p.m. Sunday, and this does add fuel to their argument and perhaps make more complicated the Speaker of the House's negotiations with these members that he intends to conduct throughout the weekend. It really is just 4 holdouts remain. The 5th no vote was for procedural reasons so that this can be brought back up. But for the likes of Congressman Chip Roy or Ralph Norman, who have been talking about this, they say that this bill is punting the actual pain of reducing the deficit and cutting spending until too late, as Medicaid cuts, for example, for those who need work requirements in this legislation don't kick in until 2029. They say it needs to happen much earlier than that with the fiscal health of the United States in mind.
Over half of America's industries are cutting jobs right now, and almost no one is talking about it. In a recent report by a Moody's analyst, it said that 53% of American industries are actually cutting jobs through layoffs. Now, a lot of this has to do with things like tariffs. But what I really think this has to do with is the changing of the guard, right? We have AI, which almost no one can really plan for, but we're starting to see the seeds of what it's to come, right? You see in media, like, they will take your job, they won't take your job. But the fact of the matter is, these companies are planning to take your job through AI. Entry-level jobs where you would get paid even $200,000, very important roles out of college, are going to get cut. Investment bankers, using Excel sheets all day, you're never going to need those. And there's robotics coming. There's all these transformations in the economy that I think that corporations are starting to prepare for. So rather than it being something like an economic recession indicator, I think that this is actually positioning for the next decade, the next 20 years. Companies are starting to realize that they don't need to hire as many people to get the things done to reach the same level of revenue that they need to. So they're going to cut costs. That's just the way a capitalist society works, unfortunately. There's a lot of interesting developments coming out of this. Stay tuned to this page and follow for more updates.
America just got economically stabbed again, and there's no denying it. So Moody's, the United States' last bastion of America's top-tier credit score, finally caved in and said they had to downgrade it due to rising debt and interest costs. Now Moody's has completed the triangle with all of the three major credit rating agencies downgrading U.S. debt. This means, for example, if you are holding on to $1,000 of debt issued by the United States, you are going to see that value drop down to, let's say, $995, $990, maybe even lower. This also means that the U.S. government has to incentivize selling more of this debt, which means they're going to offer higher yields. Countries like Japan, maybe even China, or just very large financial institutions in the United States and all over the world will start shorting U.S. debt even more to make it worth less, but pay higher yields. And then they buy that high yield debt at the expense of you, the American taxpayer. Now, don't get things twisted. The vast majority of America's debt is actually owned by Americans and American institutions like the Federal Reserve, mutual funds, U.S. holders of savings bonds, intergovernmental debt. So it's not like the world is going to hang us out to dry. It's just that we are going to keep borrowing from and paying interest to our own institutions at the expense of the little guy. Don't worry, the uber wealthy aren't going to be affected by this because they have a beautiful loophole, which I'm going to talk about pretty soon. And if things were going great in America, we could probably shrug it off. But this is happening at a time where we are even more vulnerable. The reason why it's so bad is because you, the taxpayer, now have another huge expense that's only going to get bigger, paying the interest off of our debt. Right now, America's debt is about $36 trillion, and we pay about $900 billion or a little bit less in the annual interest just for that debt. And how do we pay for that interest? Taxes and issuing more debt to pay off that debt. The reason why we have such high debt and such high interest is because we keep borrowing since our tax revenue isn't enough for government expenditures. And even though our tax revenue can't cover government expenditures, we keep giving huge tax cuts to the people who could actually afford to pay these taxes. Here's a crazy tax loophole nobody is telling you about. The government doesn't tax the multimillionaires or the billionaires as much as they should. Instead, they borrow what the tax revenue should have been from these people. They borrow it by issuing the treasuries. Okay, so stay with me here. The government, instead of taxing the very wealthy people, have borrowed trillions of dollars from them or their institutions. And then instead of these people paying the government is paying them interest for this debt. And then the government is paying them back in full. Let's make a better example. Imagine you are an American and you make $75,000 a year. Let's say the government takes out $25,000 of that income, but then pays back half of it, plus interest. That is what the uber wealthy are enjoying here. And part of the taxes that you have paid are the interest that the government pays to the wealthy people for borrowing the money that they should have been taxing. I'm not trying to be a negative Nelly for the American economy, but I just want to let you know what we are up against. First, the very wealthy are getting a huge tax cut, meaning that the United States is going to have to borrow a lot more, and that debt's going to be much more expensive. That means that you, the taxpayer, are going to be paying more in taxes towards a debt that you'll never really see the benefits of. Second, with these new trade deals, we are also getting trade barriers, which are going to lead to an increase in unemployment and overall harm to the American economy. The American energy industry is already starting to bleed heavily, and we are going to feel it in the coming months because of the production increases by OPEC and OPEC+. What's going to save the American economy won't be DOGE or budget cuts. They've even admitted they can't even do it with Social Security. One thing that would help would be raising taxes back to where they were in 2016. The only thing that can really save America is if we witness a huge economic explosion, which is possible. This was America's debt to GDP during World War II. It's 120%. Ours is about 125%. When the war ended, our economy exploded in a positive direction, and the amount of debt we held as a percentage of our economic output plummeted. How did we do this? Infrastructure investment in the hundreds of billions of dollars. We doubled the minimum wage, and we also skyrocketed our defense spending to the point where it was about 10% of our GDP. Right now, that number is at 3%. We have infrastructure development coming in that was passed by the Biden administration, so let's see how that goes. Defense spending is 100% on the table, especially with the growing threat of China. But when it comes to doubling the minimum wage, I have no idea how that's going to happen with a conservative president and a conservative Congress. The minimum wage was doubled at the time in 1950 when the unions were very strong, and they are a shadow of what they are today. Having strong worker representation is what allowed America to have such a strong middle class and the strongest economy in the history of the planet. And right now, our middle class grows weaker with every passing year. So sure, America can still be the wealthiest country in the world with the strongest economy, but it is going to be much more disparate, where there will be a very weak middle class, a huge majority of the population being lower middle class or working class or in poverty, with that tiny 1 to 5% upper crust that has the vast majority of the wealth, even more than today. And that likelihood becomes even more apparent with every dollar going up in the deficit, every dollar that we have to borrow, and every ounce of faith that is lost in the power of U.S. debt. I am the Geo Husar, and I want you to look up the people who condemned Biden for witnessing the downgrading of our debt under his administration. And I want to see, how are these people acting today? Thanks for watching.
Well, America, the idiot in charge has spent the tariff money. He has spent $3 trillion. Where was it supposed to be? It was supposed to be in the bank. It was supposed to pay off our debt or give us a check as a tax return. I don't know. But he admitted himself in writing that he has spent the money. If he's forced to pay this money back, it will plunge the United States into the greatest recession or depression we've ever seen. You voted for him. Most of you voted for him 3 times. He spent the tariff money. On what? God knows who. He spent the tariff money and now can't pay it back. I don't know. How could we have known that? 5 bankruptcies? 2 failed casinos? Who can fail at a casino?
Yes, we are in a recession in 22 states, according to Moody's top economists. We have about 13 other states that are teetering on a recession. Check out this map. These are the states in a recession. Washington, D.C. right now has the highest unemployment at 6%. California is at 6%. Nevada is 5.3%. 22 out of 50 states are currently in a recession, according to Moody's top economists. Hi, my name is Christina. I have a master's degree in business and MBA. I also have a bachelor's degree in accounting. Please get your finances in order. What does that mean? Pick up a budget template, link in my bio. Instant download, less than a cup of coffee. And literally, I use my budget template. So does my son and so does my daughter. Managing your money and where it goes ahead of time is going to be critical in surviving right now. Also, please call your representatives.
MAGA is officially done and America First is rising. Because look at what we're getting.
We get 50-year mortgages while Israel gets $50 billion. The average American homeowner is 60 years old. Meanwhile, in Israel, people are buying homes at 36. So let me get this straight. Young Americans can't afford families. But we're literally funding Israeli families for 18 years. On top of that, their kids get a trust fund. That's our taxpayer dollars. And now Trump wants to pardon Netanyahu. I mean, I'm sorry, how much denial can these Trump voters live in? Oh, but America's greater than ever. Where? We don't need more people becoming citizens. We need to hire and train Americans. He's playing 5D chess. More people are being naturalized. And you think that's good until your own kids get replaced legally? No, Epstein files a 15-year car loan and is not real first. MAGA became exactly who they opposed, cheering for censorship. So tell me, is America great yet? Because if you're not awake and you're still arguing left versus right, you have no idea what's going on in this country. Everything I just said, I saw too late. I voted for Trump and I believed it. And now I snapped out of it.
Breaking news, as of now, 22 states are in an official recession. This means that for a vast portion of Americans, we are facing economic hardship. So don't let economists and Fox News reporters tell you we're fine, we're not in a recession, because we are and we have the data to prove it. Recession is often characterized by lack of job opportunities as well as persistent economic hardship lasting more than a few months. Current estimates suggest that 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Many people are struggling to put food on the table each day. States currently in or on the brink of recession include Oregon, Georgia, and Illinois, where I currently live. There has been a significant significant decline in economic activity in these states that has lasted for more than a few months. The craziest thing is that the District of Columbia, or DC, the capital of the country, is one of the territories that's hit the hardest right now. But why? Largely because of Trump's economic plan and the tariffs. So many politicians are lying to us right now by saying that our economy is the greatest in the world, especially those on the right. And I want you to know right now that no, you're not crazy. Yes, the economy is worse. Yes, it is harder to get a job. And yes, it is because of the person who is in office right now, as well as various other factors. Crazy, and we're only 1 year into his presidency.
The Strategic Petroleum Reserve has been depleted, and it is part of our job going forward to try to replenish it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were quite a lot of sales in the past. Yeah.
Speaking of policy.
Yes. Speaking of policies from previous eras, there quite a bit of it was depleted.
And how concerning is that to the administration?
I think it's a concern. I mean, this is something that the president was pretty clear he wanted to see replenished.
Yeah.
Right. The SPR is one of the important tools we have strategically in the United States, and having it available when necessary is a critical element of policy.
A third of the U.S. economy is already in recession or at high risk of falling into one, and another third is just barely moving. Now, this is according to Moody's. So what does that actually mean? Different parts of the economy don't move at the same speed. Manufacturing and housing could be getting hit the hardest by high interest rates, while sectors like tech and services are still holding up. That split is why some people feel like we're in a recession already, while others think things are fine. For regular folks, it means pain depends on where you live and what industry you work in. If you're tied to housing, construction, or goods, you might already feel the slowdown. If you're in tech or services, you may not feel it yet, but that doesn't mean it won't spread. Follow me for more information and tips like this.
Well, it is official. It is official. We have two industries that Moody's top economist from Moody's says the industries that are in recession currently, take a guess. I don't know that you'll be surprised. Number one is construction. Number two is manufacturing. Construction and manufacturing are currently already in a recession. According to the top economist at Moody's, a recession is likely coming due to number one, tariffs, and number two, economic uncertainty. Hi, my name's Christina. I do have a master's in business, an MBA, and this post right here was how we are going into a recession 100%. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no stopping this freight train. This freight train of a recession is getting bigger and faster every day. I will remind you that in 1910, when we imposed tariffs on importers who passed it on to U.S. consumers, we went through the Great Depression for 10 years. This is going to be catastrophic. I want to remind you this was all self-imposed by one person.
November 16th, 2025, Moody's has declared almost half of the states in our country are in a recession, officially by definition. And of those half of them are red states who voted for Donald Trump. Many of the blue states are the ones that surround Washington, D.C., and had a lot of federal workers that were let go. And Moody's says that the recession is due to the tariffs, stricter immigration policies that, number one, are creating labor shortages, but also, number two, it's a loss of tax base, because whether Trump supporters want to believe it or not, even undocumented workers pay taxes. Just can't get through their heads. So that loss of tax base is helping to drive the recession. The federal jobs cuts, which are causing high unemployment rates in these 23 states, no new job growth, or very slow hiring, okay? They get into a lot more, but it's all because of this administration's economic policies. So here we are. But at least we got that ballroom, and at least Donald Trump is throwing these extravagant parties on your dime and my dime. Well, Moody's is ready to declare that the United States of America is in a recession. Moody's. They're waiting a few more minutes for some additional data to come in.
before they make that declaration. Now, by definition, we are technically in a recession when one of 5 or 6 different indicators have been hit. Facts have been hit. And the one indicator that has been met for a recession is the decline in payroll, specifically because jobs have been cut. So what Moody's does, they've been doing this forever. They send out 400 surveys to 400 different industries. Now, if there's any single month that over 50% or more send back their survey saying they've had a decrease in payroll because they've had to cut jobs, we're technically in a recession. We've started a recession, and then there'll be more indicators that happen after that. Well, for July, the surveys came back, and 53% of these 400 industries have had a decrease in payroll because they've had to cut jobs. Okay? Now, their only hesitation to declaring that we are now in the start of a recession is the jobs figures. The number of job openings don't correlate with the recession indicator because the number of job openings right now have been artificially inflated because we have deported a bunch of foreign workers. So there's an abundance of shitty jobs at shitty wages with no benefits. But because that number just kind of doesn't correlate yet, they haven't declared the recession yet. But essentially, they're saying we have started a recession. So more to come. Pay attention to Moody's.